Thanks, Alper. Let's look what's new in .NET Runtime and libraries, also C# 13 updates. Today, actually, I'm skipping the SDK part because it's really too deep it's so many topics there is, and that's why we can just skip that part and look at the libraries and runtime features. What's new in .NET Runtime libraries? Base64 URL class. We can use Base64 URL class for URL-related string operations. It offers better performance and helpful methods. The following example show us the encode to string method, and when we specify a URL, it's encoded. After that, we can just decode to use decode from chars method. Another one is lookups with span. In a string-based dictionary, we couldn't use the read-only span char advantages. To overcome this issue, we can use the alternate lookups. In this way, we can search dictionary values without additional heap allocation. The following example shows us the getAlternateLookup method, and we specify the read-only span char as a type, and we can search our dictionary values through the read-only span, and we can just reach the desired value without additional heap allocations. The other one is the ordered dictionary. We can use an ordered dictionary when we want to store items along with their index positions. Unlike a regular dictionary, an ordered dictionary supports remove, add, insert methods. The ordinary dictionary methods, we can't actually call the remove, add, or insert. But with ordered dictionary method, in the following example, you can see we can just remove an item by their index position or insert an item at the specific index. The other one is the priority queue remove method. We can use a priority queue when we need to process items based on their priority. Before .NET 9, we couldn't update or remove the existing items. However, with .NET 9, we can remove the item with remove method and also reinsert them with a new priority if needed. In the following example, you can see the Jack added as a fourth, but we want to change its priority. Then we can just remove it, Jack, with discard expression. After that, we can enqueue the same value with desired priority. The other one is the read-only set. It's a new type. If you want to expose an iSet collections as read-only, we can now use this read-only set type. Time span new format. We can now use integers to create a time span with a precise specifications. Before the new format, we can only give double values, and sometimes it's not actually the correct value that we want to see it. And with the new .NET 9, we can just give this specific time for each values, and of course the results as our expectations. The other one is the link count by extension method. When we want to count items based on grouping, we can easily do using count by link extension method. Following example show us the frequency of each name, and as you can see, the group, it's actually grouped by their names and counting to each other. And after that, we can just see with the string train method. Before the .NET 9, we just use some workarounds to do, but with .NET 9, we can just use the count by methods for that purposes. Aggregate by is similar. Aggregate by allows us to implement more flexible workflows based on grouping. The following example shows us the cumulative total for each name. As you can see, the case selector, we can just specify which value we want to group. After that, actually, it takes a func expression, and we can just create our own unique method, that business logic actually in that function. And we just want to take a cumulative total for this example, and it's actually calculate to each amount of money to buy the name. Okay, the other one is the regex enumerate splits. We can split strings using a regex pattern, but it's not efficient as it requires additional heap allocations. With .NET 9, we can use the regex enumerate split method to split a string by a regex pattern. This method returns a range allowing us to access the split parse through an indexer without extra allocation. For instance, in here, we are specifying as an input as a read-only span, and we can enumerate these splits. We can enumerate the splits by our regex pattern, and the enumerate result is resulting the range instead any string. And with that way, actually, we are not allocating additional heap bytes, and we can reach our expected values with this read-only span with a range operator. The other one is the GUID.create version 7 method. The standard new GUID method creates a GUID following the UUID version for specification, which is completely random. However, this isn't efficient when storing GUIDs in the database with an index. The create version 7 method addresses this by generating GUIDs in a time-ordered manner, improving the indexing performance. The following example, you can see, for instance, the last two variables has a certain range for a specific value. After that stage, it's completely random, and it's really help a performance in the database side. The other one is the task.vanish. It's a new extension method. When we have a list of tasks, we can loop through them using await for each with the vanish method. This way, the loop executes as each task completes. Before .NET 9, we had to use wait any method with additional workarounds. In the following example, we just wait each task by their values, and whenever a task completes, it's instantly write to console the result of that task. The other topic is the what's new in C# 13. Params collection, it's really great keyword. Params is a we used to the previous .NET 9, before the .NET 9, we are using the params only with a static arrays. However, with the new version of the .NET, we can use the params with any enumerable collections. For instance, in this example, we are using the list as a param, but we don't create any additional list in here. We can just use ordinary params synthetic sugar. Okay, new lock object. .NET 9 introduced the lock object as an alternative to lock statement for the thread synchronization. The enter scope methods acquires the lock and returns an idisposable object. When the object is disposed, it releases the lock. We can use this type to make a thread safety codes, and instead using the lock statements. Implicit index access, it's a small feature, but great to know still. We can use the from the end index operator in object initializer expression. For instance, in here, the first one is the last item actually in the index, and we can just give any value, any desired value during the object initialization. Other one is the allow ref struct. We can specify that the generic types might be a ref struct with this anti-constraint. The compiler enforces ref safety rules on these methods. It's mostly doing by read-only spans or the span types. With that way, we can create, we can use the generic type power and also at the same time span benefits. The other one is the field keywords. It is another great feature. When defining properties, we can use the field keyword in the getter and setter methods. It is still in preview, so we need to set the language version preview in order to use it. In this example, for instance, we are just changing our lang version to preview in our CS Proj. And after that way, after that stage, we can use the field keywords. And lastly, what's new in the .NET Runtime? I'm going to just show one great feature. It is the attribute model for feature switches. We can create feature flags and disable specific feature in our CS project files. If publish trimit is set to true, when publishing the app, it will remove the feature implementation that are no longer needed. In the following example, we are creating a feature class and creating some implementation method and checking this implementation is supported method. And if we, let's say, set value this feature, our CS project, and also the publish trimit is true, and deploy our application with .NET publish command, after the deployed file with opening some IL manager or dissembler applications, you can see the all implementation removed during the .NET publish command. There are so many great other improvements, but given the depth of this topic, we'll skip over some details. However, if you would like to explore further, the official documentation has everything you need. That's all from me. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Ahmet. I want to tell you, you have 17 minutes. If you have not registered to Raffles, we will give 3 JetBrains licenses and also ABP personal license. And next, we will talk about .NET Aspire and ASP.NET Core 9 new features. Now I will give my words to Berkan, and he is on stage. Okay, Berkan.
Okay, thank you, Alper and Ahmet. Hello, everyone. I am Berkan. Today, I will try to highlight some of the news that came with .NET 9 in 10 minutes. All right, let's begin. I have organized today's discussion into 2 distinct sections based on their topics. We will start with new in ASP.NET, followed by updates in Aspire. So let's first look at the static asset delivery optimization that came with .NET 9. This new feature replaces use static files and optimizes static asset delivery with build time compression using gzip and broadly. It also uses content-based e-text to ensure that files are only read-or-landed when they change. With this approach, file sizes can be reduced by up to 93%. These optimizations happen automatically during the build process, making it easier to create performant web apps. Next, let's talk about the new .NET MAUI UI and Blazor solution template. This template makes it easier to create apps with shared UIs for Android, iOS, Mac, Windows, and the web. It automatically sets up project for Blazor web app and .NET MAUI UI hybrid app, both using shared Razor components through a Razor class library. Let's discuss a new API for Blazor components. This API lets you detect the execution location of component. Check if it is running in an interactive environment and retrieve the assigned render mode. These features are great for debugging and optimizing component performance. For instance, you can tailor a component's behavior based on whether it's interactive or adjust settings based on its render mode. This API makes it easier to build more efficient and adaptive components. Now, let's talk about the updates to Blazor server-side reconnection. When users navigate back to an app with a disconnected circuit, reconnection now happens immediately, which makes it much more convenient. Moreover, if the server has already released the circuit, the app automatically refreshes the page, so users don't have to take any manual action. Additionally, the reconnect timing uses a computed backup strategy. For instance, initial reconnection attempts are rapid, but as they continue, computed delays are introduced. This behavior can also be customized to suit your application needs. Now let's discuss the simplified authentication for Blazor web apps. Previously, adding authentication to an existing Blazor web app required a lot of custom code, especially if you didn't start with the individual account template. With new APIs, you can easily serialize and deserialize authentication steps between server and browser. This allows the app to access authentication information during pre-rendering, even before the WebAssembly runtime is initialized. Next up, adding static server-side rendering page to globally interactive browser apps. This feature supports page requiring request and response cycles, like those handling HTTP cookies. Marking such page with the exclude from interactive routing attribute triggers a full page reload for server-side rendering. This approach allows you to handle diverse rendering needs efficiently within the same application. Next up, with this version, Razor components support constructor injection. In the example, the partial class injects the navigation manager service using a primary constructor. Next up, by default, interactive server components enable compression for WebSocket connections and set a frame orchestrator's content security policy directive set to self, which only permits embedding the app in an iframe of the origin from which the app is served when compression is enabled or when configuration for the WebSocket context is provided. Compression can be disabled by setting configure WebSocket options to null, which reduces the vulnerability of the app to attack, but may result in reduced performance. And configure strict frame orchestrators content security policy, which of value of none, which allows WebSocket compression, but prevents browsers from embedding the app into any iframe. Next up, the quick grid component now includes an overscan parameter. This property defines how many additional rows are rendered before and after the visible region when visualization is enabled. The default is 3, but as shown, it can be increased for better control over scrolling behavior. Next up, the input number component now supports the type range attribute. This allows you to create range inputs such as sliders with model binding and validation. For example, the slider in this code snippet is configured to select values between 2 and 6. Next up, finally, the feature that many .NET developers have been waiting for. Polymorphic type support in single R hubs with ASP.NET 9. Hub methods can now accept a base class instead of derived class to enable polymorphic scenarios. But the base type needs to be annotated to allow polymorphism. Next up, the typed results class is a helpful vehicle for returning strongly typed HTTP status code based responses for a minimal API. Typed results now includes factory methods and types for returning internal server responses from endpoints. Here is an example that returns 500 response. Let's continue with OpenAPI document generation. ASP.NET Core in .NET 9 now includes built-in support for generating OpenAPI documents. This allows you to create standardized documentation for both controller-based and minimal APIs. Let's continue with pushed authorization request, also known as a PAR. In ASP.NET Core 9, the OpenID Connect handler has added support for pushed authorization and requests. PAR is a security standard in OAuth and OpenID Connect flows that moves authorization parameters from the front channel, such as URL visible in the browser, to the back channel, which consists of direct server-to-server communication. This approach improves security by preventing attackers from accessing sensitive information in URLs or tampering with parameters. By default, PAR is enabled if the identity provider supports it. However, if you need to disable it, you can configure the pushed authorization behavior property in OpenID Connect method, as shown in the slide. Next up, the OAuth and OpenID Connect authentication handlers now have an additional authorization parameter options to make it easier to customize authorization message parameters that are usually included as part of the redirect query string. In .NET 8 and earlier, this requires a custom on redirect to identity provider, callback, or overridden with challenge URL method in a custom handler. Here is an example of .NET 8 code, and now can be simplified as a right picture. Let's continue with hybrid cache. Before ASP.NET Core 9, caching required handling serialization and deserialization manually. During a cache miss, multiple concurrent requests could perform the same expensive operation, resulting in redundant processing and increased resource usage. Now let's look at how hybrid cache changing in ASP.NET Core 9. The hybrid cache library provides a unified API that simplifies caching for both in-process and out-of-process scenarios. It automatically handles serialization, deserialization, and concurrent fetches, reducing the complexity of caching logic. Let's continue with exception handler middleware. In ASP.NET Core 9, developers can now configure the exception handler middleware to return specific status code based on the type of exception. In the example, if a timeout exception occurs, the middleware returns a service unavailable status. For other exceptions, it defaults to internal server error. Next up, let's examine some of the features introduced with .NET Aspire 9. .NET Aspire dashboard includes several UX improvements and new interactive features. One of the key additions is the ability to manage resource life cycles directly from the dashboard. This feature allows developers to stop, start, and restart individual resources like projects, containers, and executables without restarting the entire app host. For project resources, the debugger is automatically reattached on restart, providing a smoother development workflow. Now, let's take a closer look at the other user experience and feature enhancements in .NET Aspire dashboard. First, the dashboard is now mobile friendly, enabling responsive management of applications on any screen size. Second, resource details have been improved. Sensitive properties such as keys and passwords are masked automatically to enhance security, especially during screen sharing. Finally, the console log page supports ANSI escape codes for better formatting. This allows the logs to display multiple styles, such as color and bold, at the same time. These updates make the dashboard more user-friendly and informative. Let's look at the telemetry-focused additions in .NET Aspire 9. First, telemetry filtering has been improved significantly. Developers can now filter traces by specific attribute values, such as http.root attribute for HTTP requests. Second, the dashboard now supports combining telemetry from multiple replicas of a resource. This allows you to filter data at the parent resource level and view aggregated telemetry for all instances at once. Lastly, the dashboard introduces browser telemetry support with Open Telemetry Protocol over HTTP and cross-origin resource sharing. Browser apps like single-page applications can now send structured logs, traces, and metrics directly to the dashboard. This telemetry is displayed alongside server telemetry, offering a unified view of application performance. These additions enhance the telemetry service, making it more versatile and user-friendly. Let's turn to the .NET Aspire App Host, one of the most important features of .NET Aspire. In .NET Aspire 9, the App Host introduces the ability to manage resource dependencies during startup. This feature allows developers to specify that a resource should wait for another to be ready before it starts. For example, as shown in the code, the API resource waits for the RabbitMQ resource to be fully initialized before starting. Next up, we will explore the addition of custom resource commands in .NET Aspire. This new capability allows developers to define comments that extend the functionality of resources beyond what is natively supported. These comments are available directly in the dashboard, providing an easy and interactive way to manage specific operations. For example, as shown in the code, you can add a clear cache comment to the Redis resource. This comment appears in the dashboard here, complete with the display name and icon. .NET Aspire 9 introduces numerous integrations providing seamless support for popular tools and services. Let's highlight a few key additions. First, .NET Aspire now supports Redis Insight, enabling developers to easily monitor and manage their Redis resource through an intuitive dashboard. Next, the OpenAI integration has been enhanced to support the latest official OpenAI.NET library. Moving on, you can now specify MongoDB usernames and passwords directly when adding MongoDB resources. If credentials are not provided, Aspire generates them automatically for enhanced security. These integrations highlight Aspire's ongoing commitment to empowering developers with tools that simplify and enhance their workflows. That's all. I hope you liked my presentation. Thank you for listening. We are on you, Alper.
Thank you very much. And guys, we have last speaker, Engin Can. I'm going to take him to the stage.
Thank you, Alper.
Engin Can is going to tell us about .NET MAUI and EF Core, what's coming with .NET 9.
Hello, everyone again. Today I will be talking about what is new with .NET MAUI 9 and EF Core 9. When we look at the .NET MAUI site, we will see some new controls, and there are some enhancements in the existing controls. And now .NET MAUI supports compiled bindings in XAML code in a wider aspect. When we look at the new controls, we will see the title bar for Windows. And you can see an example of a Windows title in here. As you can see, it consists of parts, which you can see icon, subtitle, content, and trailing content. To customize this title bar, you need to use the Windows title bar property, and then you can use the title bar control to design your title bar. For example, you can define an icon, use it, or you can add a search bar. It can be seen in this example. And for the second new control is the hybrid web view. And this allows us to, for example, if we have a JavaScript application, like a React.js application, this hybrid web view allows us to use this React application and host in an .NET MAUI application. And to use the hybrid web view, we just need to use the hybrid web view control, and we just need to specify the default file, which is the host file of the React application in our example. And then we can define a method to communicate between JavaScript and the C# sites. And by adding a name, we can reference the hybrid web view and invoke JavaScript methods from the C# site by just using the invoke.js method async method. And then we just need to call the method and pass the parameters. And also from the JavaScript side, we can invoke C# methods. For that purpose, we just need to use the global hybrid web view variable and call the invoke .NET method. And then .NET MAUI team especially worked on iOS side, and they made some enhancements. For example, they've created 2 new view handlers for collection view and carousel view controls. And you can directly add this code block to get the benefit of .NET 9 performance improvements for iOS sites. And also, we now have better button controls on the iOS side as well. It respects spacing, padding, and margins. And also, back button behavior binding mode changed as binding mode one way instead of bind mode at one time. This allows us to take an additional action when a back button is clicked or triggered from the application. And also in the .NET MAUI side, compiled bindings are introduced, and it supports in a wide aspect. And to use it in the XAML side, you just need to define the X data type, and then in the corresponding control, you can just specify the related property, related list, in our case, in the item source, and then it will directly bind it to animals page view.animals in our case. And since we are using compiled binding, this will help us to get errors if there is any without needing to run the application. And we can also use the compiled binding in code side with this release. Before .NET 9, when we were setting text of a label, we would use the set binding method, and we would set the text with a string, with a hard-coded string. But with this release, we can also use a func to set a text value for the labels. For an example, and and when we look at the EF Core side, we will see 4 new features. We have other Cosmos DB for NoSQL scenarios. Also, EF Core introduced ahead of time compiler and precompiled queries with this release. It's extremely experimental right now, but we can try it right now. And also they made some enhancement in the LINQ and SQL translations. And also there are some enhancements in the migrations and model building APIs. And when we look at the Azure Cosmos DB, the team focused on NoSQL scenarios, and also this improved the better query performance, and also allows us to use Azure Cosmos DB in a cloud environment. And for example, when we have a query like this one, as you can see, there's a partition key, which is used to differentiate the databases when we vertically scale them. And the EF Core now generates a SQL query by knowing the partition and directly set it by running the related SQL command. And as you can see, the related SQL query is not complicated, and it's much more faster right now. And also EF Core introduced native IoT and query precompilation with this release, and it's extremely experimental, and it's not ready to use for production right now. But if we look at for an example, let's assume that we have a query like this one. We are getting all blocks with the name foo, and when we use this query and enable the out of time compilation, it will place an EF Core interception, and you can see an example interception right here. And whenever this query is run, instead of this method, the interception will kick in and call this logic to retrieve the blocks. And also there are some enhancements in the LINQ and SQL side. For example, if we have a LINQ query like this one, prior to .NET 9, it was creating a temporary join table, discounted orders in our case. And with this release, they made some enhancement in this translation, and they eliminated this left showing statement. It was not needed, and they removed it. And now, as you can see, the SQL query is much more simpler, much more efficient, and much more faster. And this is also called table pruning, and the EF Core team also provides property pruning and all of the other LINQ and SQL translations. And for example, they also support group by with the complex types. So in our example, we have some stores, and when we have addresses, then we want to group them by addresses. We would write a comment like this one, but as you may understand, the store address is a class, not a primitive type. And the EF Core 9 generates the SQL query exactly like this one. It uses the related complex type and use its properties directly without needing to explicitly define them one by one. And you can group by is a complex. It's a complete class. And also, it is same with the execute update usage. It also supports complex types. And for example, if you want to update some of the addresses in your stores, you could use the execute update async method by specifying the property as the complex type, and you can directly set the type, and then the EF core will directly map the related complex type with your values provided with a complex type. And finally, I just want to mention about some new enhancement and features on the migrations and model building APIs. And they made some enhancement in the migrations, and now it handles schema changes. And also there are some new model building APIs. For example, it now supports read-only primitive collections. And in the previous version, in the .NET 9, they were providing arrays and the other frozen set lists, for example. And with this release, they also support read-only primitive collections, and also Berkan written an article about that. You can also check it out. And finally, I want to mention about the data seeding changes in the migrations. When you configuring your database, and when you, for example, configuring SQL Server, after that you can use the new extension methods, use seeding or use async seeding, and by using this method, whenever your model is building up, your migrations are building up, the seeding logic will be used, and you can seed your data within this method, or you can directly create a new class and directly call it in here. And that was all from me today. Thanks for listening. There are also other features in the .NET MAUI and EF Core side, but for the most important
We
ones,
don't have
in my
very much
opinion.
time for all the details.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, very good. Everyone is now keeping their time very good. First, we have tried to explain you the new features of .NET 9, and as you see, there are many enhancements, especially in terms of performance. This is a very good reason to upgrade to .NET 9, but I know that many of you cannot do this very easily because of project is very big, because of managers don't allow you to do this. But if you want to start a new project, maybe it's a good way to start with the latest technologies. And for Blazor improvements, especially, I'm suggesting you to upgrade to .NET 9. I'm going to take some questions from the community, and later I will draw Raffle for the free licenses. First of all, Roberto, he is joining our sessions regularly. He is asking about the new GUID for entities that use it like user. I want to show you something about the new GUID here. Wait, I'm going to share my screen again. Long time ago, we have created our own GUID generation. And here you can see we already, ABP users already using our sequential GUID generator, which is also unique. At the same time, this is ordered by string ordering, and no need to create this new GUID. I will go to the other one. Roberto is asking another question. How should my development style change with ABP Commercial Suite? If I switch from Blazor WebAssembly to Blazor Web App, I understand two different questions from here. If I switch to ABP Commercial and ABP Suite, you will have different modules. We have more modules in ABP Commercial. Also, ABP Suite can generate CRUD pages for you, upgrade your project to the latest version, and you can use ABP Studio's paid features also. But in terms of Blazor WebAssembly and Blazor Web App, maybe some of you don't know about Blazor Web App. It's, I think, announced in .NET 8. I don't know when it's happened. We have a Blazor Web App here. You need to write Blazor Web App. Blazor Web App, and we have a documentation about how to migrate to the new Blazor Web App template and why we need to switch to Blazor Web App. I will show you something about Blazor Web App and Blazor WebAssembly. Can I make it zoom? No. I think the most significant part here is you can use here. You can use both Blazor WebAssembly and Blazor server capabilities on Blazor Web App. But for Blazor WebAssembly, you are only with client-side version, and you cannot use this hybrid solution. If you don't need, you can take a screenshot of this, and if you don't need the left side, no need to switch to the Blazor new web app. If we have OpenAI integration, are we getting a prebuilt module to insert a GPT? Actually, we are thinking very much about this. We are making internal discussions about how to use AI in ABP templates. Maybe we can make a chatbot, or we can create a search mechanism which uses contextual search. If you have an idea about what we can do, a generic idea, especially not for your specific project, you can write it on our GitHub, and we will discuss it, because we are also into this part. When will ABP templates come with .NET Aspire setup? For .NET Aspire, I'm going to show you something interesting. Halil write an article about .NET Aspire and ABP Studio comparison. And when you look here, we see something interesting here. ABP Studio is now covering most of the .NET Aspire's features here, and already we have more features in ABP Studio. So ABP users, even for my idea, it's no need to use .NET Aspire, but we are working on .NET Aspire integration. If you are willing to use it, you will do this in the upcoming versions. Do we have any more? Yes, Roberto, it will include everyone.